Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much. So my name is Claudio Colagiacomo. I am the Elsevier Vice President for Academic Relations in South Europe. And as you have seen from the mindfulness session, I have an interest in mental well-being in complex organizations, including research culture. So we're about to begin the second session of this event, which focuses on implementing gender equality. A little bit more practical session. And we'll have a chance to reflect with a distinguished panel of speakers and hear their vision, challenges, and opportunities. Just to give you an overall picture of the session, we will begin with a welcome speech from Professor Carrozza. However, we're having some technical problems before logging in. So if Professor Carrozza is not ready at the beginning, we'll go to a keynote by Mina Stareva. And then after that, we'll all join in a panel discussion together with other distinguished panelists, Beata Kowalska, Professor Geuna, Professor Anna Wall, Lucio Pisacane, and of course, Mina Stareva. I will introduce the panel later, going through short bios of the participants. So let us go to the keynote speech right now. Mina Stareva is the head of the gender sector of DG Research and Innovation at the European Commission. She worked on the development of the European Research Areas policy and international cooperation. And it's a pleasure for me to have you here, and the floor is yours for the keynote.
Thank you very much, and good morning to everyone. I'm extremely happy to be here with you, so thank you very much for having me and to share also this distinguished panel. Discussing gender equality and gender equality plans in particular. Let me start with the policy context, actually, very briefly on the next slide. So gender equality has never been as high on the political agenda as it is today. With the current Commission, European Commission, both in our internal organization and commitment towards gender equality, as well as in our European policy, where for the first time ever we do have a commissioner responsible for mainstreaming equality in all European policy and funding. The European Commission actually has highlighted its strong commitment towards gender equality already with a very strong package on gender equality strategy adopted last year, which was then accompanied by the first ever anti-racism action plan, for instance, or first ever LGBTIQ strategy. So hence, clear commitments toward advancing equality within this current mandate of the Commission. When we look in particular into research and innovation in the next slide, gender equality has actually been at the core of the European research area priorities. So we can go to the next slide. And actually, we do cover in our policy three main objectives. So it's gender equality in careers at all levels, gender balance in decision making, and very importantly, integration of the gender dimension into research and innovation content. And we do support this through an institutional change approach through gender equality plans, which is today our key policy instrument to achieve long-term sustainable advancement toward gender equality in research and innovation. On the next slide, I would just like to present you very briefly the enormous support which we have deployed to actually support institutional change within research and innovation organizations already since FP7, but namely, particularly under Horizon 2020, through the funding of the implementation of gender equality plans, reaching more than 200 organizations within 30 gender equality plans projects. And we do also actually accompany through a set of support initiatives such as creation of community of practice on gender equality plans, which is very important in the current context of Horizon Europe, and I will go to that. Supporting transnational policy coordination or research funders networks, as well as supporting a training academy for gender equality, and more recently, a project addressing gender-based violence in academia. In the next two slides, actually, I just wanted to show that Portugal has been actually a key beneficiary of our structural change projects. So within the next slides, you will see the projects in which Portugal has participated and that have finished. But in the next slide, you would see that Portugal is very actively involved in many institutional change projects, as well as in one of our policy projects fostering the consideration of gender aspects within the international cooperation, science and technology dialogues with third countries. So this, of course, transforms the slide into, of course, the achievements of Portugal, which we witnessed today, also with the publication of the report. So achievements in gender equality in research and innovation aspects, when actually looking into the journey of a researcher from graduation to full professorship positions, including in STEM sciences and careers, but also in decision-making positions. So a quick sneak peek into the preliminary finding of our 2021 Shift Figures publication, monitoring the state of gender equality in research innovation in Europe, to which actually Elsevier is also data partner, shows that actually some further improvements have been made by Portugal compared to 2018 Shift Figures edition. And we clearly see that Portugal exceeds largely the EU average in many aspects. But let us go back to actually the overall European context. On the next slides, we can clearly see that the institutional change approach that we follow and support through the implementation of gender equality plans has had very positive impact in many research organizations and has been a catalyzer for action at national level and transformation institutional level. But what we also see is that there is still heterogeneity across the EU, with persisting structural barriers in research and innovation institutions, which need to be addressed. It needs to be addressed to a more ambitious approach, and this is the stand that we take with Horizon Europe and with the European Research Area communication. So we clearly see the numbers. In the EU, on average, women occupy only 24% of top academic positions. They're still heavily underrepresented in STEM fields, and women represent less than 10% of patent holders. So whatever progress we may say that we are making on gender equality, this is clearly not enough. So we also see growing awareness of the need to address gender-based violence, which unfortunately occurs also in the academic and research circles. And importantly, there is also bigger awareness on the need to address better sex or gender analysis in research innovation content to increase the excellence and societal relevance of the resulting research and innovations. So with our policy framework, the European Research Area communication, and of course through Horizon Europe, we change gears, we go for a more ambitious approach. We want to open up our policy to inclusiveness, to actually address also intersections with other social categories, such as ethnicity, sexual orientation, or disability. We also want to actually work better and address the private sector, and we also want to ensure geographical inclusiveness. On the next slide, this is very important also in the current political context, member states are the key drivers for change. This we know it, and they're really the main actors responsible for introducing. And very importantly, already during the previous presidency of the EU, under the German presidency, member states have agreed to put an emphasis on the need to foster institutional change through gender equality plans. And this is also very much on the agenda and the priorities of the current Portuguese presidency of the EU, but also on the upcoming Slovenian presidency, which is actually organizing an event on gender equality in the European Research Area on 8th and 9th of July. So we also see that the member states also have put a lot of emphasis on and address the research funders also as the key actors for setting the strategic agenda and making sure that allocation of research funding is not affected by gender bias. Now, going to Horizon Europe. With Horizon Europe, of course, we actually strengthen our commitment to gender equality. This is pretty much on the agenda of the current Commission. We introduce a new eligibility criteria, which is the gender equality plans. We introduce a new mandatory award criteria, which is the integration of the gender dimension. The ranking factor, the gender balance as a ranking factor has been also strengthened, and also content-wise, and I'm very happy to mention this, is as the first work programs of Horizon Europe 2021 and 2022 have been just published, actually, so they are now available on the participants portal for Horizon Europe. We do have specific funding to actually address to foster gender research and intersectional research, and to also develop inclusive gender equality policy to support the European research area. Going at the next slide, so gender equality plans, they become part of the eligibility criteria for public bodies, research organizations, and higher education establishment applying to the Horizon Europe program. A transition or a grace period will be implemented before the full enforcement of this eligibility criteria, so starting with the calls with deadlines in 2022 onwards. And this eligibility criteria does not apply to other categories of legal entities such as SMEs, non-governmental or civil organizations. We do indeed we target those categories that we have supported until now. So if we go to the next slide, I just would like to guide you through what we call the building blocks of what is mandatory for the gender equality plan in Horizon Europe. So to be eligible, legal entities from member states and associated countries, you need to have a gender equality plan that covers the 4 minimum process-wise criteria. So gender equality plan needs to be a formal document endorsed by the top management and published on the institution's website. There must be dedicated resources for the design, implementation, or monitoring of the gender equality plan. A gender equality plan needs, of course, to be evidence-based, which require collecting and monitoring of sex and gender disaggregated data across all staff categories. And the gender equality plan needs to foresee also some training and capacity building activities. Going to the next slides, we actually also do recommend 5 thematic areas to be covered by a gender equality plan via concrete measures and targets. So these 5 thematic areas content-wise are work-life balance and organizational culture, gender balance in leadership and decision-making, gender equality in recruitment and career progression, integration of the gender dimension in research innovation content, and measures to address gender-based violence. So if we go to the next slide, I think it's very important that to show that, of course, we want to make sure that all institutions are aware and eligible actually for Horizon Europe funding, comply with the requirements for gender equality plans. So we do actually accompany these new eligibility criteria with a set of actions to support policy coordination at national level, to actually support mutual learning seminars, exercise, and setting in place a gender expertise across member states. We actually already have worked with the Institute for Gender Equality to set in place the GEAR tool, the Gender Education and Academia Research tool, where we do actually list all the good practices and instruments and tools resulting for the gender equality plans that we fund. But we also set in place a pilot facility for gender equality, which aim actually to mobilize and build expertise, provide practical support to higher education and research organizations which do have little experience in the adoption of implementation of gender equality plans. So this is clearly very important, and at the end I would come also to this again. Now, I have one more key message to you. It's the second important element introduced in Horizon Europe, which is the mandatory integration of the gender dimension. So we actually, on the next slide, please, we actually foresee that each research innovation action in Horizon Europe does, in principle, has an impact on women or men, boys or girls, female or males, and this impact should be considered. Hence, applicants should address in their research innovation proposals the integration of sex or gender relevant aspects, unless the topic says it different. So we do also consider that, of course, some research topics do not need to address gender aspects. And for us, this is a matter of social responsibility. This is a matter of understanding all people's needs, behaviors, attitudes, and make sure that we come with excellent research results, which also creates new business market opportunities. So I would probably stop here. I have some slides for you at the end of this presentation, which will be circulated with the useful information, because speaking about gender equality plans, we just published today a new fact sheet on gender equality plans accompanying the publication of the Horizon Europe Work Program, which is on our webpage, Gender Equality in Research and Innovation. And we have also accompanied this fact sheet with the question and answers, quite extensive documents, which also may be very helpful in case you need it. And last but not least, we actually have our European Research Innovation Days, 3rd edition, next week, 23rd, 24th of June. And we do have a session on She Figures. So we do have a workshop on equality from data to action, where we would like to present some key highlights from our She Figures edition and link it with our future policy action at European level. So of course, you're all invited to it. Thank you very much. We don't hear you.
It's muted, Claudio.
Okay, I just said I was thanking Mina for being so so much information. I was saying that I'm sure will spark a fruitful discussion later on when we go to the panel discussion. Before we go there, though, I wanted to ask briefly Lucio Pisacane. He's a top researcher at the CNR, the National Research Center in Rome, in Italy, and he is actually leading the Mind the JEP program on behalf of CNR. Lucio, would you mind giving us a quick welcome introduction before we go to the panel?
Yes, first of all, thank you, Claudio. Thank you all for participating, and apologize for I think there is some issue with the connection of our president Carrozza, and I apologize for this. And just a few words on the Italian National Research Council. Is the largest Italian research institution, public research institution, and we are a partner within the Mind the JEP project. So I have to say, for us, Mind the JEP was an incredible occasion to tackle the gender equality issue within our organization, together with the pressure that the European Commission pushed on research organization through the eligibility criteria, because again, when it comes to funding, then everyone is much more convincing about the necessity of tackle the problem. The National Research Council has around 9,000 employees, so it's a very large institution. It's a complex institution because it has research facility through all the country, through all Italy. So we are now planning our gender equality plan with the support of the Mind the JEP project. So for us, it's an incredible occasion to work on this, and together with the Mind the JEP consortium and also the Elsevier support. So thank you, and I will be with you in the panel. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Lucio, and we'd love to hear the challenges and the opportunities that CNR is going through, putting together a gender equality plan on such a large scale, being such a large institution. So maybe we'll have a chance to reflect a little bit on that in the panel. About the panel, this is going to be a moment to draw from the experience of everyone here. We have representatives from different countries, different institutions, and specifically we're going to reflect on the practicalities of implementing a gender equality plan. Mina gave us a very nice overview of the different aspects of what a gender equality plan means, and of the possibilities and the importance of that implementation. So joining me today, we have a few distinguished speakers. Beata Kowalska is a professor at the Institute of Sociology at the Jagiellonian University in Poland. She holds a role as ombudsperson for the University on Academic Rights. We then have Professor Stefano Geuna. He is the rector of the University of Torino. The University of Torino is one of the leading universities in the Mind the JEP program. Good morning, Professor. And next, we have Professor Anna Wall. She is the Vice President of Gender Equality and Values at the Swedish Royal Institute of Technology, the so-called KTH. Good morning, Anna.
Morning.
And Lucio, you just heard, researcher from CNR, and of course Mina will stay with us for as long as she can. I hope she can stay for long during the discussion. So let me begin with the first question. Oh, and before I head with that, to the people listening, there is a Q&A chat box, so feel free to ask questions. We'll select some and we'll be happy to discuss it in this panel. I will be bouncing some questions, some general, some specific, but any of the panelists, if they want to intervene, feel free to do so. The first question is to all, and is the following. What does gender equality mean to you personally and to your organization? I'd like to start with Anna.
Okay, it's a very broad question. It means working with, I would say it means that you drive change, that you work for change in an organization. And in this case, the university is an organization where you have to sort of drive change. And as a university, it's also important that gender equality work is based on gender studies, gender theories, and knowledge, so that we work from research in everything we do. And I think also that today, gender equality work includes, in our context, a sort of intersectional perspective where we do not have to every time say that, well, it's not only gender. You have to remember diversity in different ways. So we kind of put this together, and that we always bring several perspectives into the gender equality work. So that would be my take on that concept.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's go to Professor Geuna from the University of Torino. You have such a broad vision on the university, and it depends on you on gender equality plans. What is your vision on those?
Thank you very much. Let me start from the broad question, what means to me, even before being a rector. So really, the idea that I have is that the gender equality issue is the central, the key issue for tackling, as my colleague said before, every types of disequality in the world. So the idea is not just that gender equality is a matter of justice between men and women, but it's a matter of building a better society where, let me say, the humankind is in equilibrium with ourselves and also with the planet. Let me say that also the sustainability issue that today, the green issue, is so much important. If we are able, a society where it's able to respect the gender equality, then that society, that community will be able also to respect the balance with our own planet and environment. And for the university, again, it's not just a matter of justice, but it's a matter of building up a better university, a better academia, an academia which makes better research, which makes better formation, which makes better third mission and public engagement. So it's not just a matter, this is my idea of justice, it's a matter mainly of building up a better society in general and a better academia as we get to our specific role.
Thank you very much, Professor. Beata, I'm curious about your view from Eastern Europe, from Poland.
So, the first of all, thank you very much for invitation. It's a great pleasure to be with you today. So it's very difficult to say something original after two such good voices. But let me share a few thoughts based on my experience, not only practitioner but also researcher, feminist professor with 3 decades of experience. So I described equality by referring to a set of other values. The first of them is justice, but it isn't a redistributive notion of justice, but rather a notion of justice that revolves around when it is fair for people to be treated the same or when they should be treated differently. And here is a link to the next set of values: recognition and respect for differences inside institution. And it led us to the third value, which is related to self-determination. That means people ability to exercise some degree of control of their lives and their careers that allows them for development. And the last but not least, it's solidarity that I understand as the capacity to identify with others, to act in unity with them in their claims for justice and equality. And in my opinion, those 4 values build the environment for equality at every institution. Thank you.
Great. Thanks. Thanks a lot. Lucio.
Yes, thank you, Claudio.
And you have a broader vision as well, considering the JAC, which has a pan-European impact. So for you, what does it mean? What is the passion there that drives you there as a researcher first, and then?
Yes, let me answer first personally as a researcher. I have to say that, in my vision, gender equality within research, because we have to remind ourselves that research is such a particular economic activity in which is all about motivation, competencies, passion of people. So our raw material is people. So I see gender equality as a human resource management problem, and I think it's a mean to have more open and inclusive research organization. I like the broader picture of gender equality in society, but then if I don't like when it becomes a general problem that so no one can really do something about it. So let's start from the organizational level. We have organizations that are gendered because are not giving the chance, are not supporting people who have talent. So this is a first great problem within research organization and also at CNR. So in my view, this is a mean to change our organization culture, and to support the talent and the motivation of that is equally distributed among genders. So if it comes up that there is a imbalance, it means that we are not supporting someone, we are depriving the intelligence of someone who could give his support to the research. So this is my vision. It's very on research organization. Thank you.
Thanks, Lucio. Mina, I'd love to hear your view on that. So your personal motivation, and then I have a specific question more related to your role. But first, more on the personal level. Why is it important?
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I think I spoke a lot about gender equality commitment at the organization level. So indeed, I mean, I would start by gender equality is a commitment. It's a personal commitment. It's, for me, it's clearly a matter of fairness and respect, where we actually treat people in the same way equally, and people get equal chances. And here, when I speak about gender equality, I also look into intersectional perspective. We actually people get equal chances irrespective of sex, racial, race, ethnic origin, or whatsoever. And gender equality is a destination for me. It's a destination where actually, which builds clearly on some bold commitment, on commitment on bold actions. And this is why I also am very excited to work in the current gender sector of the current DG Research and Innovation under the current Commissioner Maria Gabriel, which is very much committed to support women and girls in science, in research careers, but also to address gender equality in a systemic way. And to build up, and I think I mentioned it, a strong and excellent, but also inclusive era, which actually mobilizes all of its talents. So in a way, I really bring together my personal commitment with the commitment of the current organization I work for.
And it's interesting because when we put together the report, I had the chance of asking a few researchers for points of view on gender equality plans and gender equality importance in people's lives and in society. And the answer very much mimics, this idea of a journey, of being on a journey and proceeding step by step. And the other item that I noticed very much is the fact that it comes eventually grassroots, right? I mean, now there's policy making, and we in Portugal, it's happening very much at the highest level. But the passion, the vocation, almost is something that you can spot, or at least I spotted in the people I interviewed, was very much rooted into maybe fundamental values of whoever they are. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I mean, we need to have. We need to believe, but we need to have very strong leadership, and we need to have everyone involved into achieving a systemic change. Otherwise, it's not possible. A top-down approach or a bottom-up approach is on its own. It's not sufficient. This is why also our policy with the implementation of gender equality plans, where it can sound as very. We do have these 4 process-related building blocks, which is the strict minimum. But this is how we actually try to engage the full set of organizations, where we actually try to promote coordination, communication, exchange, awareness-raising activities, capacity-building activities between clearly the young researchers, the top managers, the middle management. And this is how, in our view, and this is how we also work on our equality plan in DG Research and Innovation, we work all together. We do have actually a matrix among all directorates in DG Research, where we actually work on what is, for me, in my portfolio, in my dossier, what does equality mean and how we can achieve it. And then we, of course, exchange with the top management and co-design our actions with the external world and external researchers. So indeed, a project requires the involvement and the commitment of all, because indeed one may also witness some sort of gender fatigue, and this is what we try to avoid. And we really need a very strong policy narrative on why do we want gender equality? What does it mean for society?
Okay, so I'm just going to pick your brain one more, because you're going to give me the springboard to a question that I want to pose to all. So from your perspective, European-wise, how are research organizations responding to the requirements that are being put in place? What's the feedback you're getting?
Well, it's a very good question, because actually we co-designed this approach for the gender equality plan since 2019. So we've been working with different organizations. We've been working with, of course, with the gender experts within our gender equality plans project, but also beyond. We have been contacting national organizations and trying to make sure that actually the building blocks that we put in place are achievable and actually are feasible and realistic for all research organizations. We are often criticized that this is just a ticking box exercise because it's not ambitious enough. So basically, this is why actually we come with concrete guidance. We want to work with different member states and different organizations to make sure that actually we also collect the feedback, and then we also adapt if needed to what we actually request as eligibility criteria for the gender equality plans. But I think that what is clear for us is that for the fact that we have the support also from member states to go beyond it, actually to build on the gender equality plan for Horizon Europe as an eligibility criteria, which was not contested during the negotiations of Horizon Europe, and to go beyond and develop inclusive gender equality plans which address also intersectionality, etc. For me, this is clearly a sign of really commitment of all sides and support to our approach. And we also, we also have some results coming from our projects clearly indicating some correlations between gender equality plans in organizations and innovation performance and research excellence. So in a way, I think that we do have largely the support of scientific community, but we are also ready to help where needed. So we will continue funding organizations to advance with gender equality plans. We will continue providing guidance, and we know that actually it's a huge achievement which brings huge responsibility, and this responsibility is also on our side, and we are very little in the gender sector working on this, but we are responsible for making sure that research community across Europe and beyond, associated countries beyond, are aware. And not only so, are first aware and then are ready for Horizon Europe. So indeed, we are very much excited by this moment.
Great, thank you. Well, as I said, I'm going to use that as a springboard to just cascade the question to the rest of the panelists. Anna Wall, starting from you, what are the challenges you think to set up a gender equality plan program, and do you think your organization is ready for that?
Oh, yes, definitely. We already have it in place, actually. As we have this assignment in Sweden since a couple of years ago, back to gender mainstream our universities. I just got my vice presidency at the same time, which was perfect, to sort of move from my area of research into practice, to bring my knowledge from gender and organization and change and into driving this change. So what we did was a first plan in 2017 for the gender mainstreaming, which means working with the whole university and all groups. So we said that the main goals are to have an organization for this, to organize the work. The work didn't start 2017, has been going on for a long time, but to sort of coordinate what's going on and to get this kind of structure from a group that I can lead, and to have more local groups all over the place and including a lot of groups, etc. So that was one thing. But also one other thing that I think is crucial is to raise knowledge and awareness in the whole organization. A lot of what we have already been talking about is not evident to everyone. The answers to why should we do this and what does it really mean and what is the difference with gender equality and other diversity and all these things. So I think the thing is that you have to have, it's not a quick fix. You have to have a lot of time and energy, and how I do it and how we work with it. We have an equality office and we have all these groups, but we also arrange a lot of workshops, training, and we go into gender, into the leadership training, into the recruitment committees, into the teaching, higher education courses, and in all kind of these processes where you can actually have a lot of knowledge, that people get knowledge. And now we're also moving into to make it mandatory in all our student programs to have this kind of small piece, but still mandatory into all programs, to get the definitions right, to understand how can we see inequalities, what kind of data are there, how can we find this, and also the connection to sustainability, the 17 goals, etc. These kind of things we're integrating right now into our programs, and to do that we have to work a lot with a program responsible and the teachers. So there we also reach people that, of course, they do teaching, but they also do research. So it's very much about training and having this kind of safe spaces where you can really have the dialogues, because of course there are a lot of misunderstandings, there are a lot of resistance, and all this is very important to sort of get to the surface and to discuss and to sort of really feel that there are a lot of change agents out there. It's not enough with one vice president. It's nothing. You have to have a lot of change agents in the organization. So that's the way we work. Very briefly. So I would say that's it.
Yeah, the training in safe spaces, and you mentioned these agents that kind of like spread the news, while the base works on this, and the leadership also gets right aware on these things. Later on, I will have a question, if you have time, to learn a little bit more about the way you integrated equality and diversity into the study programs. But just let's hold it right there, and let's just continue around the floor. I'd love to hear from from Rector Jonah about the challenges to setting up a gender equality plan, or even the opportunities that are there.
Thank you very much. So you first asked if we are ready. Of course, we are in the university coordinator of Mind the JEP project. So we should say that we are ready, and we are ready. But I would like to emphasize that you talked about the journey. The journey is very complicated. The road is not a lack of obstacles. We know there are many resistance, many obstacles. Unfortunately, if we look to the past, and as my colleague said before, we too, before the Mind the JEP, has a long-term history in our university about these issues. But if we look in the past, how the things have been getting better, they have been getting better too slow. We have to admit that. There is many years that we are trying to change things about that issue, and things are getting too much slow. And so we have to do more. We have to, I don't like to use the term fight usually in general, but in this case, I really think that we have to fight hard to be strong in order to run much faster in this journey. And how can we do that? Of course, we are the academia. We believe, we trust in science. So one of our main objective is really to translate the scientific advances that the project like Mind the JEP and many other will obtain, because science is the heart. But the big problem we know, to translate science into practice. So in our university, really, we have put at the center of the strategic plan of the next 6 years this issue, and all our scientific competences, of course, in an international context, will then be put in order to translate the advances into practice. And the adoption of the JEPs is really we believe that it's a strong instrument, a strong tool to tackle positively this issue. So we will make every effort to have the JEPs, but especially have the JEPs working, because the other things that plans sometimes are difficult, have a problem, is that you make the plan in general, and then the reality do not follow the plan. So the big and my commitment is in this moment of my life, the director of the university, is really to make it possible that the plans will be then followed by reality, and therefore we look very much forward to the result of this and the advances of science in this matter to really apply in our real life and practice.
Thank you, Professor. Let me remind the audience to keep the questions coming. We'll leave some time after this session for questions from the audience. So just open up the Q&A box and just put down any questions you may have. Beata, I wanted to go to you with that same question.
So let me for short intervention. So we are almost ready, almost. We are a part of Mind the Gaps project as well. And from my perspective, gender equality plan could be an efficient tool. In my institution, we have experience in working with a gender project. Thanks to that, we have collected data. We design tools. We organize trainings and courses. But there has been always too little bit of determination and will. So I'm looking forward to the obligatory gender equality plan, because in my opinion, it could be an important institutional and structural tool that can help in implementing gender equality.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm curious about Lucio on this one, because you mentioned that CNR is putting together a gender equality plan. At the same time, you are right, in the middle of Mind the Gap as well. Can you tell us about the challenges of implementing gender equality?
Yes, Claudio, I wish the Professor Carrozza, our president, my president, was here to answer on if she feels we are ready now, but not joking. The challenge is very complex and we are on the way. I would not say we are ready. This afternoon at 3 p.m. At the Central Administration Office, we are presenting the gender budget of the National Research Council. So we have a picture. We have collected data together with the team at UNITO at the University of Torino, and Cristina Solera, who is the coordinating person of Mind the Gap. We are designing a survey for all the employees at CNR. So we want to design measures that are really grounded, that make sense for our research community. So I would not say we are ready to launch, to have a gender equality plan ready in a few months, but we are on the way. And we also have the approach, collecting data is extremely important, but then I would also say there is sometimes a fascination of quantification. You need the numbers. It's true. I am for evidence-based measure on gender equality, but then you also need to know the opinion of the person, of the researcher. If that measure is not really designed for that organization, it will not work. So it will only be a plan. And the difference between the gender equality plan and the approach of the Commission in comparison with other national policy is that the Commission is not taking just a promise. The Commission wants to see the advancement. So if you are saying this measure will be implemented, then you have to show in the following years the data about the implementation of the measure. So we are full of rhetoric about gender equality in research and science, unfortunately. But gender equality plan are a tool that are asking to take away the rhetoric and have the reality. So choose and design some few intervention and make it reality. Okay. So for a large organization as the Italian National Research Council, this take time. This afternoon we are kicking off the process with the picture of the gender balance. So we have the picture. From there, together and with the support of the top management, we hope in a few months to design the measure of our gender equality plan. Structural change, especially for the very large organization, is a complex activity that takes time. Grazie.
The usual example of steering an oil tanker, right? You begin to implement the procedures to steer, but then you actually see the steer some level of slowness. But I noted very much here on a paper the evidence-based implementation based on data, and you didn't mention explicitly, but I guess you were hinting to KPIs. You know, a clear set of KPIs that can be measured, set at the beginning, shared with the top management, and then tracked as progress continues. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I was mentioning that, but when I say measure, I say exactly the implementation of, after the analysis of the problems within the organization, then what are you going to implement? And then you should monitor during the time the effect of the measure you have implemented, because otherwise you just kick off a measure and then you don't know what happened.
Yeah. Okay, there is a question that just came in from the chat. It's from Elizabeth Politzer, and it's directed to Mina. And this is actually a good time, Mina, to check on your timing, because you told me you were about to leave around 12:30. So are you about to go, or do you want to take the question?
I will take the question.
Okay. Question says this: is the Commission planning for an independent, external, critical friend type of evaluation of how Horizon Europe projects progress in the implementation of gender plans and utilizes the available gender equality plan expertise in the community to provide help where help is needed?
I must say that the connection was bad at certain point, but I think that I got the question. But so if I don't respond entirely to the question, you let me know. I think that it's also very much to what we just discussed about data and measures. What is very important is that we don't only come with the requirement for gender equality plans without in the future measuring the impact of the gender equality plans on the research community. So our intention for the time being is that in terms of measuring, in terms of, let's say, auditing, we will proceed with some targeted gender audits on some of the projects in Horizon Europe. While at the midterm review of Horizon Europe, we will address this also as a cross-cutting priority for Horizon Europe, where we will set through a procurement or an independent expert group or the format that we consider that is the most convenient for actually assessing the gender equality aspects in Horizon Europe as a cross-cutting issues and the impact, so that we also readjust, if needed, the actions that we took, and so that we also expand, if needed, to also involve all actors, all legal entities within this requirement criteria. But indeed, our intention is, and one could also see it with the publication of the work programs today, our intention is that we want to support a policy coordination network of gender equality experts in all member states, so responsible for providing actually advice to the Commission, but also to member states and national contact points for Horizon Europe on how to address gender equality aspects in research proposals. And our intention is also to set in place some sort of a think tank. I'm saying this because it's actually a center of excellence, it's much bigger on gender equality, working on new topics and helping us to actually develop better understanding of what an inclusive gender equality plan is, how to measure it, how to actually measure the impact at institutional level, at structural level, how to actually measure its importance at in national level, and also cross-border collaborations, etc. So clearly, we are fully committed to actually follow up on what we actually have set as a requirement in Horizon Europe.
Okay,
I hope
thanks.
that I addressed the full question of Elizabeth, but of course, I can also stay for 2 or 3 more minutes, but then I would need to leave. Apologies for this.
Yeah, okay. No, it's okay. You respond on different aspects. The question also asked about the external, if there are external components or external ways to measure, and you clearly mentioned that with think tanks and other activities. So thank you very much for that. One question specifically to the Italians on the board, so Professor Gemma and Lucio. From the previous panel, when we presented data from the Portuguese report, there was a piece of data which was very surprising, at least to me, maybe it is not for you, which is the fact that Italy scores second in Europe when it comes to gender parity in research as a whole, right? If we just take all the areas of research and we look how many men and women publish, we are above 46%, if I'm not mistaken. So second place in Europe. Question to you, Professor Geuna. Does this surprise you, or do you think, and do you think there is awareness of this leadership in the community, in the broader society?
Thank you. Well, a little bit it's surprise, but anyway, I think that in Italy, as in all the other European countries, as I said before, we did several things, many things in the last year, in the last 20, 30 years. So it's nice to see that somehow in this ranking, Italy is a little bit better than the other. I know that in other rankings in the same issue, we are not second place in Europe. So really, I would like to look again to your metaphor of the journey. We are in a journey, maybe in a single moment, on a single parameter. It looks that one country is a little bit better. So let's think in sharing maybe the good practice. It would be nice to see and share how we manage to reach that issue. But the point is that we are still very far from the goal, and so we do not have to say, okay, we are good enough. So let me say that there is a sensibility in the academia, but still not the academic community is enough sensible. We know that this is a problem in all the society. Many people, unfortunately, also in the academia, they are not aware of the importance of this issue, and this is something really where we have to educate since the very beginning of our life, of formation of children and so on, that this is an issue, because some people still say no, it's not so important. And so let me say that we still have to work hard and to do much more for going on this journey.
Okay, thank you. Lucio, are you surprised? You're probably not. You are on top because of the research you do.
No, I mean, I'm not surprised because, again, motivation, competencies, and passion are not gendered. So the researchers who are working, I mean, they are publishing because this is their job, and women and men are publishing at the same level. The surprising issue is that in Italy, the research funding at national level are going so down that is surprisingly people still is in a position to publish, to run research, although the national funding are going down. And I mean, there are apart from the study you have done, there are some other interesting study also done on CNR that was published on Scientometrics journal that looked at the fact that often female researchers are more linked to national projects rather than international projects as a result in publishing. So again, this point for Italy could be a policy indication to say we need to support our female researchers to go and have a full network at international and European level in the participation of EU projects, because often publications are the end process also of network project and research funding that often come from Europe rather than national, at least in Italy, from national source. So I'm surprised that we are balanced in the research output, although there are all these issues at the background.
So the question I wanted to ask in the chat, which now I don't see anymore because it has been cleared, but I remember it because I took notes. Essentially, the question was about the way gender balance is embedded or not in the way we teach, right? In the way we teach in school at university, and what do you think about that? I know, Anna, you have done work implementing gender equality in programs. Do you think there's enough that is being done here, or is this an area almost like a blind spot that is not being overall taken care of?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Or is it to the panel? Yeah, I mean, I think that most universities in Europe have, like, they teach gender courses, but they're not mandatory. You can choose them and do it voluntarily. So the kind of knowledge and awareness has not been spread to all students and not to all teachers. So this is kind of a gap that we have to try to bridge, not to make entire gender courses mandatory, but to integrate just the sort of small pieces into programs where very, very fundamental and basic sort of concepts and data and what is inequality, how can we see it, how can we find data, how is this connected to work for change and legislation and EU and all these kind of things, but also the sustainability goals and how are they connected, I mean, reduced inequality and gender equality to climate and other things. So I think that is very important that all students that leave university have some basic knowledge, so they do not go into work life or society and still have these very vague ideas about what this is about. It's only about values or opinions, because it's about knowledge, and we keep it very sort of to that. We say that this belongs to academic organizations, that we build on knowledge, and this is what we do. So I think that will be one thing that will help us to broaden kind of the awareness around these issues. But of course, then students can still choose to learn more. They can go to the libraries and find a lot of interesting papers, etc. They can choose gender courses and deepen it. But this is about the sort of basic level. I think that will be interesting to see. And as I work at a technical university, it's also like a lot of the teachers find it very distant from their disciplines and what they teach. So we try to encourage them to find these connections to their own programs. And we have to push them a bit, because we don't want it to be that they sort of look for a gender scholar that comes and gives this lecture and do the exercise and all. But we want them to do it themselves, because that is the way teachers will also become more aware, and that they sort of can explain the why themselves. That it's not sort of, so I think that's it's a basic work, but it's I think it will do good, but also do good later on in research and in society and work life, that we sort of contribute with this in a university setting.
Yeah, and Gaia Venturini, who's the person who asked the question, she actually underlines the fact that there is neuroscientific research that underlies how differently women and men learn, and how much this aspect should be taken into perspective, especially right when teaching, like you were saying, engineering or right areas where historically men have been more active, right? There's no gender bias there. It's more
I'd like to add that when it comes to the students, it's kind of this basic knowledge. But when it comes to the teachers, we also want to make mandatory that they learn more about gender sensitive and inclusive pedagogics, because that is, I mean, all the way how you divide into groups and what kind of questions you do and exercises and all this. So this is something that we will want to make mandatory for all teachers to become better teachers in that way.
Great. Beata, what do you think about that?
Oh, so it's a huge problem and huge question. So I am a founder of a gender studies program at my university. So I fully agree with Anna. But bearing in mind the internal regional diversity, it's worth paying attention to several problems particularly important to our region. As far as numbers are concerned, it isn't bad. It's even slightly better than European average, because we still have more women among people obtaining doctorate, even among people with a title of professors. But we should remember that university doesn't operate in a cultural vacuum. And this situation influence also our curricula and our programs. We very often discuss now about authoritarian turn in our region, and it influence also gender dimension inside academia. Let me enumerate only a few things. The first, lowering the prestige of journals that publish gender research, eliminating gender studies program in several countries, our region, granting and funding support. So it will make difficult to research and collect data and think in wider perspective about our teaching for equality, not only gender equality, but equality at all. And one more important thing, I think that still typical for our region, it's under investment in higher education and low wages. The comparative studies show very danger trend. So in countries where wages are better, the number of women is shrinking. Of course, we know that that pattern, for instance, from banking, because it is the same, but it's very dangerous when we think about gender equality from a wider perspective.
Thank you very much for that perspective, specifically also, and the references you made to the Eastern European portion of Europe. That makes it very very interesting. Thank you for that. We have a few more minutes to go. So for the remaining 4 minutes before closing, I have a question for all of you, and just would like to go around the table, just putting ourselves into a visionary, maybe dreamlike, however concrete mode. How, like 10 years from now, looking towards the future, how does a gender equal research culture look like I said, 10 years from now? How do you envision that? Starting from Professor Gerna.
It's difficult, of course. Predicting the future is not easy. Anyway, I would like to say that I should be optimistic somehow as a rector, but I am optimistic. I think that now I see things that 5-10 years ago I didn't saw. So let us be absolutely optimistic. But as I said before, we have to work hard. Things do not happen alone in this field. So we have to work and let's be optimistic.
Okay. Thanks for the optimistic note. Lucio, how's your outlook 10 years from now? I think Mind the JEP will be finished by then. So
yes, we have 4 years ahead for the project. But yes, then I hope that what we are doing, at least in our respective organization, will leave a sign, will leave a change. So, I mean, my vision for CNR is to have a more open, more inclusive research organization, for sure. And I also have to say that the research, the dimension of the contents, I think, is something that should come with the time, because we are now very much focused on the research team composition. No? The problem is much more about the numbers, but then with time, I think will also come the content and the methods of research in the perspective of gender. So my vision is, yes, we will slowly fix the number and we will progressively come within the contents. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Anna, so 2032, how will the world look like?
Yeah, well, I have to continue the hopeful tone here. I hope that academic cultures has been challenged, but by all our efforts here that we've been talking about for the last hour, so that we actually challenge the very, I think, individualistic measuring of publications and citations and grants in a very sort of measuring way that I don't see really is making any good from research helping to meet the problems that we face in societies and in the world. So I hope for a different kind of academic culture that is, of course, more inclusive, more gender aware, more aware of the urgency of doing research that really counts and that is important, instead of sort of focusing on the individual careers. That would be my hope of the impact of our work.
That resonates very much. Beata.
Thank you very much. I am so rather pessimistic at the beginning, but with optimistic conclusion. So we should remember about current situation. And influence of pandemic and lockdowns on situation of our employees. So we have to stress that it influences women in academia stronger. But there is also good news. The first competitive studies show that women-led institution copes better with pandemic by putting care and community at the center rather than productivity only and profit. So I believe that feminization isn't only about parities, but also this difficult time will change our culture of our organization, not only in better academic achievement, but also caring, including community. So at the end, I am definitely optimistic.
Good. I'm glad to hear so much optimism there. I will add an extra aspect of optimism, hopefully from my side. I truly hope that parallel theme like diversity and inclusion and ethics and equality on different levels will also align even further to gender equality, towards a more equal culture on different level. Anybody want to react on this one before we finish?
So let's do it.
Let's do it. Back to work.
Yeah, back to work. Back to the work. Yeah. So thanks to you all, as we had to the end, we heard several perspectives on gender equality and more. We heard how much efforts goes towards implementing plans to work at the European community, for instance. We heard new challenges that go towards ensuring gender equality, and it showed that gender equality is a sustainable road to walk on. What I take home from this whole thing is a strong commitment from across cultures that we heard, across leadership roles as well. All of these, I think, are essential building blocks that are necessary to build over the solid foundation of gender equality, which has already been laid out. I also take home the importance of keeping society, the broader society outside of the scientific community, very much aware of the gender equality plan efforts, and at Elsevier will continuously strive to take part of that role. I hope the road towards gender equal culture will be paved with several moments of discussions and alignment, such as the one we had now, bringing all of these perspectives together in the true spirit of research. Let me thank you, all of you, for the time, for being here. It was great having you here, and I'm sure we'll meet some other time on the road to gender equality.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
also in person.
So-
That would be
Yeah.
great.
See you in
Yes,
better
that would be
words.
great. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.